Welcome back, guys, to episode 6 of the Seeking Truth podcast. I honestly can't believe the amount of incredible feedback I've had about the podcast so far. Thank you so much, guys, to everyone who has either given me feedback or rated the podcast or left a comment. It's really encouraging for me to get that feedback from you guys and hear from you guys that you are enjoying it, and it makes it all the more fun and all the more pleasure to record these for you guys. So welcome back. We are at episode number 6. Can you believe it, guys? Episode number 6. Who would have thought that we would get this far? It's incredible. I don't know. God is so good, guys. God blesses us so much when we're faithful to him. But here we are, episode 6, and I'm so excited. I want to do a quick plug at the beginning before we jump into our episode today, because I recently published a book. I published a book in October of 2019. It's called This Is Love. It's a Christian poetry book, and the story behind the book is quite interesting and incredible in itself. But I want to let you guys know that this book is really inspired by God. All of the poems in this book is Holy Spirit breathed, meticulously picked out, selected, and ordered in a way that is meant to inspire you guys, is meant to just speak to people, and that was the whole purpose of me publishing this book. So if you want to get your hands on a copy of that book, simply head to my website, emmajanecatchpole.com, and you can order the book on there. You can get an ebook, you can get it paperback. I do ship worldwide, and check out the website if you want to get a copy of the book. It's also on, ebook is on Amazon and on iTunes, and you can also now physically get the physical book on Amazon as well. But yes, wanted to do a little bit of a little plug for that. So episode 6, Seeking Truth podcast. What are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about a concept that I have been thinking about for a little bit, where we're going to call it That's Just Not Me. And basically the whole concept, I feel, is about people labeling themselves, and how labels have become something that people use to hide behind, and people use as excuses to not step out of their comfort zone. For example, I see it time and time again where people are like, oh, I'm not smart enough to be able to do that. Or I'm too introverted to be able to talk on stage or to be able to lead a life group. Or I'm too introverted to go talk to those people. I'm just not a good leader. I could never be, a small group leader. I could never, lead the kids' room for this week. I'm just not a good leader. That's just not me. And these labels and these perceptions of themselves cause them to shy away from stepping out into the place that God is calling all of us. And that's to be on the streets evangelizing to people about the love of Jesus. That is who he calls us to be, calls all of us to be, regardless of our personalities, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of how we view ourselves or how other people view us. That is the person that God calls us to be. It says in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." He has called us to have power, and he has called us not to stand in the shadows, but called to be the light, to be the love, have power and authority in this world to bring his sheep back to him, back to the true shepherd. So I want to break down some of these labels today. I want to talk about how I think there can be really unhealthy misconceptions and cause people to really negatively view themselves and limit what they think they can achieve. And again, bringing that back to that is not God's plan for your life, and that's not what God has in store for you. If you were to fully step out into the person that God is calling you to be, you would be amazed at the things that you can do that you don't think that you can. And because we're limiting ourselves and hiding behind these labels and staying in this place of comfort, because we're using these labels almost as a way more to tell us about our identity than God is. And I really, really want to challenge that and break that down today. Let's start with a controversial one. I'm sure I'm going to get lots of messages about this one. Don't at me. But let's start with introvertedness. The term introverted, if you search that on Google, you get over 10 million results. If you search extroverted, likewise, you get 16 million results. Okay? These terms, I did a little trend analysis on Google here. From 2007, it really peaked. And from then, it's been about 50% up from what it was before that peak. So something's happened around that time. Was it 2007 or 2017? I think it was 2017. I'm sorry, stand corrected. And ever since that time, it's really stayed high, and it's gathered a lot more interest, and people are Googling it a lot more, and there's a lot more things written now about, are you extroverted, are you introverted, how to tell what you are, and I'm sure we've all heard of something called the 16 personality types. Basically, you take this test and you get a 4-letter label of what personality you are, and I feel out of that, the biggest factor that people kind of latch onto and tell people about is whether they're introverted or extroverted. I don't hear people going around here saying whether they're perceptive or judgmental. I hear people saying though, oh yeah, I did the personality test, I'm introverted, I'm extroverted. I feel like this can be really unhealthy to take this label from this test that you've taken in one moment in time and to associate that with your personality and say that that is who you are all the time, across all time. If you're anything like me, your personality or your energy level is very fluid. And like when I'm in a large group of people, I kind of feed off that energy and I'm more energetic and I'm more bubbly and outgoing. If I'm with one person and we're just talking intimately, maybe sitting around drinking some tea, just talking like really deep personal stuff, like I'm very calm and very mellow. I seek out different personality types for different moods that I'm in. So maybe I'm seeking someone who's more calm and more peaceful when I'm feeling a little bit like anxious or dysregulated, and I'm seeking those people who I know will really pep me up and give me lots of energy when I'm feeling a little bit like blah. And so, I feel like, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like there are characteristics that have been labeled as either introverted or extroverted, and that people latch on to those characteristics as a way to help them decide whether they are introverted or extroverted. So, for example, like I like being around people to recharge. We hear this on all the time. Oh, that must mean I'm extroverted. Or like, oh no, I need to go home and spend time by myself to recharge. So that must mean I'm introverted. Now, I don't think that's necessarily true, because I know a lot of people that I am friends with, and also myself, that when we're in a group of people, we are very loud, we're very outgoing, we're very bubbly, but we still need to go home and have those nights where we don't talk to anyone, or go home and recharge and spend time by ourselves. And we enjoy spending time by ourselves. And in the past, people who enjoy spending time by themselves have been automatically labeled as introverted. So if you were to take that characteristic on its own, me and my friends who are like that, and we're fun, bubbly, outgoing in groups of people, but then we go home and enjoy spending time with ourselves or go home to relax after a long day, now we're suddenly introverted because we like doing those things. I don't think that's true. I think, especially as Christians, the more that you become comfortable in who you are as a person, and the less you're depending on other people to make you happy and confident in who you are and your identity, the more time you're going to enjoy spending time by yourself, and the less you're going to depend on other people's company to uplift your spirits. And so, like, I don't want to say that people who are depending on other people's company to uplift them are always extroverted. They could be lonely. You know what I mean? And I don't want to say people who need to go home and relax and recharge after a long day are introverted, because again, you could just be tired. You could just need to spend some time alone because you enjoy spending time alone, and you enjoy spending time with God and getting in touch with yourself again, and that mindfulness that's associated with that. I feel like for a lot of people, we're not purely only introverted or extroverted, but the world is trying to force us into these binary characteristics of, no, you have to be one, you have to pick one, even for that personality test. You can be 50-50, bam smack in the middle. It's going to pull slightly more to one side. It might be 51% or 49%, whatever. And then that's going to label you. Oh, now you're an extroverted personality type. Actually, I'm in the middle. You know what? I'm neither introverted or extroverted. I'm in the middle. I'm just me, And it's causing a lot of confusion with people. And my point is that it's causing people to make excuses for their behavior, because they're then saying, oh, it's because I'm introverted. Oh, it's because I'm extroverted. The reason I'm so loud, the reason I invade your personal space, the reason I whatever is because I'm so extroverted. And the reason I don't want to hang out tonight is because I'm feeling introverted. You know what I mean? Why can't you just say you're tired? Why can't you just say that you have lots of energy? You know what I mean? Like, why do we have to force it into these characteristics of I'm introverted and I'm extroverted? I think a lot of this comes back to the fact that we are letting society label who we are rather than who God says we are. So we're allowing ourselves and allowing the world to tell us who our identity is and what our identity is, rather than who God says we are. So you may be feeling afraid, you may be feeling like you're lacking in courage, but if you're truly leaning into God, His strength and His security will make you brave. He'll set a fire in your heart to reach out and inspire those around you. Get out of your comfort zone. Go talk to that person in the corner who's standing alone, not because you're feeling extroverted today, but because you have a heart for people who are on the outskirts and you really want to draw them into God. And that's where it's coming from. That's your identity, is that you are someone who loves, and you are someone who seeks the broken and seeks the lonely, not that you're someone who's introverted or extroverted. You don't need to be an extrovert or a leader or a brave person to pray for someone, to get in front of a small group and share, to go talk to someone new. These things, the security, the bravery, the encouragement, the confidence to do these things comes from God. It comes from leaning into His word, knowing why we're here, why we're called to this place, and knowing that our purpose here is to reach out and share His love with others. And knowing that's our purpose, and knowing that's our identity is going to give us those skills, going to give us that confident boost, that even though me, Emma, doesn't feel confident to do that, I know that this is what God's wanting me to do, and I know He's going to be with me through that. So even though I feel really stressed and anxious and I don't want to do that, I'm still going to do it because I know that's what you want me to do, God. And I know that's the way that you've planned for things to happen, and that you want to be there for every person in this room. And you are asking me and calling me right now to step out in faith. And it's not me who I'm putting on the line, but it's you and your love. There is a lot of negative labels as well around mental health, like a lot of key words now people are using is, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have PTSD. And I am completely not at all disqualifying people who do have these things. But I think there is a real key difference between someone who is feeling depressed and someone who has clinical depression. And I think we all go through those moments. All of us go through those moments where life really gets us down, really sucks. We really, really struggle to push through every day. And I think that is normal. It is normal to go through our lives and hit these moments where we're struggling, and we are struggling bad. The Psalms, a lot of the Psalms King David wrote when he was in one of these moments, and he was really struggling on a daily basis with his faith, asking God, why is things happening to me? Why am I on the run for my life? Why are my enemies after me? Why am I hiding in a cave? Why are you allowing these things to happen to me, God? And he's just begging God to take him out of these situations. Like, that must have been an incredibly hard, depressing time for him. But would we label him with having depression? Would we label him as saying he's never going to get out of that because he's stuck in depression now? No, we wouldn't. I think there is really a key difference in understanding, am I suffering from depression, or am I going through a depressing time? I think the key thing is that actually your environment is causing you to feel that, rather than actually suffering from clinical depression. Or I could be completely wrong, I don't know. And let's say that everyone is in those moments suffering from depression. I think a lot of us then use those labels as excuses for not stepping out of our comfort zones. I can't go out today, I'm too depressed. I can't step up and be a leader in this thing that I'm gifted at because I'm too depressed and I'm worried that I'll let the team down. I'm worried I won't be able to commit, whatever it is. I think those are valid fears, but are we allowing those fears and allowing that label of what we have to override what it is that God is calling us to do and what he's trying to encourage us to do, even though we don't feel good enough and we don't feel like we're qualified enough? But God never ever calls the qualified. He always calls the broken. He always calls the underqualified. He always calls the people who others least suspect, because he wants it to be shown that it is not them who's doing it, but him, and it's his glory. And those people acting out of that and acting out of the faith is bringing him glory. And that is such an honor. That is such a privilege, that even when we're in those darkest moments, that we feel called to still do things, but then we're suppressing it. Like, run with those callings. That is God trying to give you a hope and a vision and a joy and a purpose, and trying to work through that situation that you're in right now to bring him glory and share his love and his light to the people around you. And it's so saddening when we use those labels almost as protective shields, because it's comfortable. It's comfortable for me to not have to put myself out there. It's comfortable for me to not step out of my comfort zone, especially right now when I'm in this place of vulnerability, especially right now when I'm feeling like my whole world is falling apart. But I think it's in those moments that we need to take a step out and go, okay, if my current situation is not supporting me emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, I need to get out of my current situation. I need to make a change in my life, one that I can physically see that what I'm doing with my life is for good. It's for a positive benefit. And what better way for that to happen than to step out of your comfort zone and do something good for other people and see the positivity that you are impacting in the world around you? What a better way to encourage you when you're feeling down and depressed. Another one, like I said before, is anxiety. And this is something that, I'll be real with you guys, I'm still learning about a lot myself and correcting it in myself. It's become very normalized to talk about having anxiety, to talk about what triggers you, what triggers your trauma, what triggers your dysfunctional responses. It's become very extremely normalized. There's a lot of self-help Instagrams out there now, and a lot of which I do follow and see daily. And it makes me wonder, if we're normalizing it so much, is it creating excuses for people to behave badly and have poor dysfunctions? So for example, you're in a relationship, your partner does something that triggers you, which can be legit, like they could do something that actually triggers you, brings up a past response. If we're normalizing, oh, that was a trigger for me, I'm feeling anxious now, you've activated these past patterns, is that kind of creating a lack of responsibility for trying to change those, or recognizing yourself, hey, for the health of me and for the health of this relationship, should I not try and reduce those anxious feelings? Should I try not to react so negatively to things that I know they're not doing intentionally, and trying to really work through that and trying to really overcome this? But if you're labeling that as normal, you kind of get this sense of, I don't really have to, as long as they understand where I'm coming from and why I'm feeling this way. Maybe it's okay if I never change. Maybe it's okay if I stay this way forever. I'm aware of it, but I'm not doing anything about it. And I think that's kind of a bad trap to fall into, because then again, you get stuck in this idea of like, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to be okay with my partner doing that, because, that's just always going to trigger me, or whatever it is. And I think that we all need to be working towards identifying, what parts of my identity do I have attached onto me right now? Whether it is, I have anxiety, I have depression, I'm introverted, I am not smart enough, I am not funny at all, and people just make fun of me. What parts of our identity do we have labeled and stuck on us? And I want us to take each one of those labels and hold it up against the word of God and see which parts hold true. Because he does not say to us that we are timid, that we are cowards, that we are not good, that we are unloved, that we are unworthy. In fact, he says the complete opposite of these things. He says that we are beautiful, that we are loved, that we are his chosen people, his sons and daughters, his royal priesthood, that we have been chosen to shed his light and his love to the world around us, that we have been chosen to be brave and to step out in faith and be bold. These are the things that he says about us. These are our identity that he calls us into. And I think it's really important to compare everything that we believe about ourselves and hold it against that. And if it helps you, if you're someone like me who needs to write this stuff down to really process it, why don't you write down a list of all of the labels that you have on yourself, and then on a fresh page, the next page, I want you to write down a list of things that God says about you, God says about your identity. And I want you to cross out every single label on the first page that does not align with who God says you are. And I want you to look at what's left. Look at the things that you know about yourself that God says about you. And you'll probably find that a lot of what you have written down doesn't align. You'll probably find that a lot of your identity doesn't align with who God says you is. And that's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a challenge to really rebuild your identity, to make sure that who you see yourself as, who you are at the core, aligns with who God says you are, who you have been all along, but you have allowed the world and allowed your own mind and allowed your experiences to tell you who you are and to shape you. And once you really realize that that is actually not part of my identity and that's not who I am, you can release a lot of negative behaviors. You can release a lot of insecurities, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear about a lot of things, because it's associated with those other identities. And it's going to create in you a lot of bravery, a lot of courage, a lot of love for people, pure love that's not motivated by getting something in return, that's not motivated by putting your name out there and becoming famous, or that pride that's associated with doing a good thing. It's generally going to come from the fact that you recognize that you have been chosen, that we have all been chosen, and we are all equally loved by God, and that we're just here to be a representation of that. We may go through hard times. We may go through things that are challenging, that are difficult. We may be faced with situations that we feel are impossible. But if we always look at those things and look at this incorrect, broken interpretation of our identity and say, I can't do it. That's just not who I am. I wasn't created for that. I wasn't meant for that. I can't do those things. We're really going to turn down a lot of what it is that God has planned for us. We're really going to miss out on a lot of opportunities and a lot of pathways that God has intended for us to take. But because of a spirit of fear, we haven't. We've backed out and we've accepted a lesser option because that's all that we feel that we deserve, because we're holding on to this warped version of our identity and we're failing to see who we were actually created to be. Your dream should scare you. Your dreams and your visions, when you think of them and look at who you are right now, they should scare you, because a lot of us have an unhealthy view of who we are and our identity and what we're capable of. But God is a God of impossible things. And God always picks the people that you least suspect to partner with him in the great. And he wants to do that with you just as much as anyone else in the Bible, just as much as King David, just as much as Gideon, just as much as Paul. He wants to partner with you to that level. And the amount that we accomplish in our lives will be dependent on how willing we are to walk with God through what he has planned for us. Because I know that he doesn't have a small thing planned for us. He hasn't just planned for us to impact surface level for people or impact a small number of people. I really believe he has called us to impact deeply in the hearts of many. And I'm not saying that just because you're leading a small group and you may only have 5 in your group, that what you're doing is not good. No. If you're impacting those hearts deeply, you're doing the right thing. He has called us more than just surface level Christianity. He has called us more than just surface level evangelism. And our lives should look different. to the lives of people who do not follow Christ around us. People should be able to look at us and see a difference. Our lives, our relationships, everything about us, our confidence, our self-esteem should look different to people who are not followers of God, because being a follower of God gives us bravery. Being a follower of God makes us do things that the world thinks is crazy. And it's all to impact his people. It's all to rescue his sheep and bring them back home to him. So I want you to dream big. I want you to really recognize that those dreams that you have in your heart that you kind of brush off as silly, as unrealistic, that they're not. That those dreams have been put on your heart by a God who loves you and wants to partner with you to accomplish those dreams if you so let him, if you're obedient to the path that he's setting out for you. And I'm not saying that those doors are going to open right now and that suddenly you're going to be preaching to 1,000 people. That may not be the plan God has for you. Maybe God is calling you to impact people in different ways than on a stage preaching, because we all know that is not the only way to really impact people. But those doors aren't going to open straight away. You may be on a journey, on a path to get to that point, but if you're partnering with God, you're going to be impacting people along the way. You know, it's not like suddenly the door opens and bam, you're at the level that he's intended for you and that's just it. That's how you live the rest of your life. No, it slowly builds up. It builds. Your impact, your influence will build. And maybe you're always impacting the same number of people each time, but you're leaving a trail of hearts that have been healed, leaving a trail of people who are now on fire for God and also impacting their world around them. And that's how your influence grows. That's how you sharing God's love and the passion for him spreads to the world, is by you impacting one person's life deeply enough that they then impact someone else's life deeply. And that's how it grows. And what a powerful thing to be able to look back on your life at the end and know that I have accomplished so much for God because I was not afraid to step out, that I was not contained by the labels that I put on myself, that society put on myself, that my mind was trying to put on myself, and actually step out and follow the calling that God's placed on our hearts. What an incredibly powerful thing to be able to experience at the end of days. So I hope this podcast was helpful. I hope that this has really helped to open your mind on questioning some of those labels that you have about yourself, and also labels that you may be putting on other people and dismissing them as not being good enough or not fitting with your perception of what a leader might look like or whatever it is. I hope that you're really questioning labels that we are putting on people, because those are not the labels that God is putting on us. And I really want us to see ourselves and other people the way that God sees us. And that's only going to come through intimacy with God and through looking at his word and reading about and really truly believing that when we're reading about what he says about us, that is true. And that is how he's created us. And the world has broken us. The world has tainted us. The world has made us unclean versions of what we were. But we can always get that back. There's always redemption. There's always renewal. It says in the Bible in Isaiah 1:18, though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. We are completely washed clean in the blood of God. And that's why we come together. That's why we praise God and worship him and follow him and have faith in him, because he completely redeems and restores. No matter what we've done, no matter who we've been, no matter what mistakes we've made, there's a bigger purpose to why we're here and who he's calling us to be. And all we have to do is keep following that path. All we have to do is keep following that vision that he's put in our heart. And we won't go wrong, and we won't stray, and we won't be disobedient to him. So thank you guys again for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, make sure that you leave a comment or a rating. It really helps us out, gets the word out there that this podcast exists. Share the love around, share the word around. Feel free to send a link to your friends or family that you think would benefit from this. And I hope to have you back on next week's episode. Bye, guys.